And now we flip the script. On International Youth Day, the spotlight usually falls on tech, fintech startups, coding boot camps, app innovators. And don't get me wrong, those stories are inspiring. But what about the other side of tech? The stories of young Africans turning soil into opportunity, crafting culture into commerce, building industries that don't need a laptop or an office space to thrive. From farming to fashion, grassroots innovation to manufacturing, these are the hidden wins quietly powering Africa's future. So the big question is, are we too tech obsessed? And how can we build a balance where both high-tech and hands-on industries thrive side by side? What you see is an inspiring image to champion this conversation. It says, I'm a youth in agriculture. I turn soil into opportunity. In my hands, seeds are turned to food. In my hands, seeds are turned to wealth. In my hands, seeds are turned to hope. In my hands, seeds are turned to a future that feeds generations. And then you see, accompanied by an amazing picture of a young lady who clearly is into farming. Now, like I always like to say, this isn't about to be a monologue. So we have amazing guests to join us to discuss the other side of tech, the other side of the classroom, the other side of the 9-to-5 workspace. And joining me now to have this conversation, I have Zigwai A. Fanda, the founder of Ladybamboo Ltd, joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us, Zigwai. Also, we have with us Kolawole Adebayo, tech analyst, BrainBox, joining us from Oyo, Nigeria. Thank you so much, Kolawole, for also joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
An absolute pleasure. Okay, so we'll go straight to the conversation. Now, Zigwai, as a convener of climate change and a circular economy in Africa, what would you say inspired you to merge environmental advocacy with entrepreneurship, especially in a world where we always try to magnify the importance of 9-to-5, of the tech job, of the job skills that require the use of laptops and office spaces?
Hi, so I'm the founder of Ladybamboo Ltd. So what prompted me was I'm a trained chemical engineer and I've worked as a process safety engineer. But, on practicing, I looked at it because as a chemical process engineer, you understand environment, you understand materials, science, and all of that stuff. So being a chemical engineer, I realized that, in the oil and gas, with flake gas and all of that stuff. Then I now say, okay, what can we do to remedy that? What can I do to solve that problem? And I realized that bamboo is one of the major sources to eliminate or eradicate climate change, because we all know that carbon dioxide is the main source of climate change because it damages the ozone layer, making it porous, and we as human beings perceive it here as climate change in terms of global warming, flooding, drought, and all of that stuff. So I looked at it, I'm like, okay, if I'm going into this bamboo thing, where people don't actually really value it or even know about it, the best way to do it is to bring it into fruition and then let people see the importance of it. So I started by just selling bamboo, but as a chemical engineer, I looked at it, what can you add value to it, so that people will appreciate it more. So we now move into interior decor, where we make bamboo furniture, accessories, and decors. So that's where we were able to incorporate the engineering aspect and then the entrepreneur system into everything.
Okay, Kolawole, let me come to you. From your experience as a tech analyst, why do you think that the success story usually that we talk about when it comes to African youth is often told more often than not through a tech-first lens?
Could you come again? I missed you for a bit.
Okay, so I'm just trying to ask why you think that, because, there are speculations, and to be honest, if you look at the statistics, most times the success stories of youths across Africa usually highlight, the tech-first lens. There's a young person in tech who has made it, a young person who just got into tech, a young person who, we try to magnify the laptop, suit and tie situation, whereas there are people who also get their hands dirty and are also successful. But we don't really talk about that. In fact, sometimes within this context, it's seen as a symbol of poverty.
I think there are many factors converging for that reality. There's the idea of visibility that young people feel they can get when they get into the technology space. For instance, you're able to get grants faster in some cases. You're able to network faster in some cases. I also think that another thing that isn't really being talked about is the idea that not many people talk about the failures in the technology world. I can't really remember the stat now, but about 1 or 2 out of 10 startups succeed, just about one of them, right? And so the fact that people don't care enough about failures makes them see some sort of glamour that does not really exist in the technology world. It exists, but there's also failure. So that's a major reason why that's the case, I think. And what I think can be done with regard to that is there needs to be more talk about these other sides of the technology world, where you're talking about agriculture or fashion, mom and pop businesses like even car wash, tailoring, and which are really the backbone of the economy. Because when you look at it, small businesses just all around the world contribute a major, significant part to the growth of the economy worldwide. So I think that's something that needs to begin to be in the spotlight right now, so that people can see that it's not just about the laptop, right? There are other things you can do to succeed. And maybe we can talk about that later, but there could also be a convergence between both words. It doesn't have to be an either or situation, right? There can be convergence between both worlds. But I think those are some of the factors that are making, people gravitate towards that world of glamour.
Okay. I mean, I like the fact that you talked about convergence, because really, as one of my bosses will say, we literally can walk and chew gum, so why not do both? So let me come to Zigwai now. What would you say are some of the risks of being too tech obsessed as a continent, especially for the youths?
I've lost you. I didn't get that.
Okay, so I'll repeat myself. I'm just asking, what do you think are the risks of being too tech obsessed, being too obsessed with the tech kind of success as a continent?
Yeah, so for me, just like my colleague just said, at times people don't talk about the failure. And also, I think in this generation, if you're into tech, for instance, if you're into Forex, like copy trading and all that, it's easier. Like the younger generation find it's more easier for them to learn that and make quick money in Africa. Well, you look at if you're going into the non-techie coding entrepreneurship, or innovation, you have to go into, like, for instance, if you're into agriculture, you have to go to the farm, you have to do a lot of manual labor, to ensure that you bring in the result. But with tech, once you learn one of the ideas in tech, let's say fintech and all that, you're able to make a lot of apps, and then you're able to come up with results. So that is a bit faster compared to maybe, like for me now, for instance, I do the bamboo stuff. Bamboo implies that you have to go to the farm, you have to cultivate it, you have to clean it, you have to polish it, you have to put it together. So there's a lot of things that happen behind the scene, and people don't really want to go into that. Why would I want to go into that? Well, I can just get my laptop, my computer, or my phone rather, to learn these things, putting apps together and bringing a business, and it brings a fast result to some extent compared to the non-techie and innovative business.
Okay, thanks for that, Zigwai. Now let me come to Kolawole. In your role as a creative director, how do you see tech enhancing industries like farming, like fashion, or creating creative manufacturing instead of replacing them? Because that's one thing that many people do not consider.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's a very brilliant question. I'll give you a very simple example. One of my friends, or one of the people that I mentor, is into the fashion business. And, one of these days, this conversation came up, and it was from a very genuine heart. He was curious about it. There's the huge talk about AI, and there's the huge talk about AI replacing people. And he's like, so how can I use AI? And I'm like, a simple chatbot could be very helpful if you are into fashion, for instance. You could set up, and there are already some of those features on WhatsApp, for instance. You could set up an AI bot that can help you, attend to customers and reply their chats without you being there, so that you can focus on other important things. That sounds very simple, but it's a very classic example of how emerging technologies like artificial intelligence can be used in these other types of businesses. Another example is I know a company. The company is called Integrated Area Precision, founded by Femi Adebayo. He's a Nigerian, and it's a Nigerian company. And what do? They use drones to help farmers map out their farmlands, so that they have more precise understanding of what is happening on their farms without necessarily being there, right? So that is not replacing the farmers, but it's helping them become more productive, because now, imagine if you have hectares upon hectares of farmlands, and you can't go through all the farmlands at once if you're like doing it manually. But with a drone, you can do that faster and see where the problem is and address that problem. So that's also another good example of how technology can be used in other sectors, without replacing people. I think that the fear about replacements is actually valid, but I think in certain instances, for the most part, maybe it's my sentiment, but I think for the most part, it's been overflogged, right? It's not going to replace people. It will help people who know how to use it, especially technologies like AI, to do their work better and become even more productive.
Great. Now, Zigwai, your advocacy focuses on circular economy principles: reuse, recycle, regenerate. How can African youth practically adopt these ideas in everyday entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so the other day we were talking about how we can incorporate, like my colleague just mentioned about AI, So what we looked at into is like there's a company that are into recycling. So what they did was to kind of have like an HCM, they enhance and promote like education. So for instance, if you don't have money to send your child to school, they encourage women to gather the empty bottles, bring it and slot it in, That's a technology. So for me, I looked at it in this way, that if only we can actually take advantage of the technology, we're able to reach wider people in terms of circular economy, whereby we collect all this reusable stuff, like the plastic, the cartons, and all of those stuff. We do that incorporating like the ATM machine to collect all that. And then we use some apps as well, whereby we teach people in school, where they're able to implement the use of this app. Once they download it, they're able to know the locations where they can collect all these reusable waste, and then we in turn add value to it. So we've started in Africa with the company. In Nigeria, sorry. So we're looking at gradually we'll move into other parts of Africa. And this will not be possible without the use of technology.
Great. Now, let me come to Kolawole, and as much as we're saying that we don't want to magnify one side and ignore another, even you made a very valid point earlier about those who even go into tech. It's not everyone who ends up being successful. So a lot of youth are chasing visibility in tech, which is a very good thing because it's a strong point, but they're struggling with sustainability. So from a strategic point of view, how do we build sustenance, longevity in youth innovation, be it tech or outside of the office or four walls of an office system?
I think there needs to be more programs that actually address that from the government. I mean, I think that the Minister of Communications, Dr. Boston, is doing a really great job, but of course, always more can be done, right? I think there needs to be more programs that sensitizes the youth, right, the population, and lets them know what is what and what is real. Kind of like separating fad from reality and letting them know, hey, this is not a shortcut, right? There still needs to be hard work. You still need to be hard at work in the trenches and dig deep into the trenches and follow a particular trajectory before you can see the results that you're getting. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme, right? It's hard work that cuts through the noise and moves the needle and actually is impactful. So there needs to be that. Perhaps there can be a public-private partnership of some sorts where I think there just needs to be more and more work where, youth are just understanding what is reality on ground. And in my world and across my network, I'm already doing that, I talk to a lot of young people every now and then. Some of the people in my network are already doing that and letting them know this thing takes time. And you don't necessarily have to become a programmer, right? There are other things you can do and succeed at those things and, create lasting impact,
right?
Not just for yourself, but for your immediate society.
Okay, thank you so much. We're out of time, so Zigwai, I'll need you to answer this in as few words as possible. How do you get, because it's easy to say, oh, we need to create an avenue, a welcoming environment for young people to delve into something other than tech, but how do you get young people to see farming and other sustainable practices as cool, in their words, or aspirational careers, not just a fallback option when you don't have any other choice? Very quickly, please.
So I think those things that are being avoided are the backbone of the society. Even without that, they were the source of revenue to the country and to families. So we need to actually have an advocacy for people to see the importance of it, that technology is not actually against it, but we should go out there and learn how to use technology to even make it more simpler and easier, and then let the world begin to know that this is what is happening even behind the scene. Because if you were in the village and you were a farmer, with technology now, people are able to see you globally. Like I remember before we started, the lady now that was shown, it was because of technology. Yeah, she's in the backyard in the village, but with tech, we're able to see her. So we need to incorporate the two. They're not actually against themselves. It's just to use them as both.
All right, thank you so much. Because of our time, we have to end it here. Zigwai Fanda, founder, Ladybamboo Ltd. Thank you so much for joining us. And also a big thank you to Kolawole Adebayo, tech analyst, BrainBox, joining us from Oyo State, Nigeria. We appreciate your time with us on the show.